Shalom, shalom. This is the brother Raphael from WFI, Watchman for Israel. First off, I want to start off by giving all honor and glory to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Barakatum. The purpose for the video today is to give encouragement and show light that the so-called Northern Kingdom is supplied with the so-called Hispanic and the Native American here in this part of the world. Although we know that the diaspora is throughout the entire four corners of the so-called black men, Hispanic, and Native Americans. And without further ado, I'm going to be reading out of a couple of historical events out of the Yucatan before and after the conquest, and I'll be going into origins of the American Indians in future videos as the Spirit gives revelation, so that I will be able to edify the body of the 12 tribes of Israel. And with that, let's get started. So this is Yucatan before and after the conquest. And in page number 8, I hope that you guys are able to see this. I'm going to read it, what's highlighted in green. Some of the old men of Yucatan say that they have heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east. If this is in Salakia, whom God delivered by opening for them 12 roads through the sea. If this is true, all the inhabitants of the Indies must be of Jewish descent, because the Straits of Magallanes having been passed, they must have spread over more than 2,000 leagues of territory now governed by Spain. So before I move along and get another similar thing that happened that we can find in the Bible, I'm going to read it here out of Exodus chapter 14 and verse 21. And it reads, "And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left." So as we saw right here in this book, it says some of the old men, right? Salakia. It says some of the old men went into telling you, this is what they believe. This is what was passed down to them by the time that the conquistadors got there, right? These were the stories that they were passing along. And it was apparently it was a known fact, right? To give another example, right, when we're looking at the pyramids and stuff that they were building, and we'll get into some of that stuff later. But right now, I want to highlight some of the things that popped out to me as when I first started reading this book. It says right here in page 14, the Indians relate there came into Yucatan from the south tribes with their chiefs. And it seems they came from Chiapas, although the Indians do not know. But the author of the conjectures from many words and verbal constructions that are the same in Chiapas and in Yucatan, and from the extensive indication sites that they have been abandoned, they say that the tribes wandered 40 years through the wilderness of Yucatan, and having in that the time of no water except from the rains, that the end of the time they reached the sierra that lies about the opposite side of the city of Mayapan, 10 leagues distance. Here they began to settle and began to erect many edifices, right? So let's go into the scriptures and see where also we can find this, right? Let's go and look at Numbers chapter 14, 32 through 35, right? And it says, but as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in the wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. And after that number of days, which ye search the land even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. I, Yahweh, have said, I will surely do it unto all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me in this wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die. So this is important and mighty because as we're reading along with this book, it goes and it gives us explanation of how our people in those days were passing along oral traditions. And they were saying, man, look, man, our ancestors said, this is where we come from. This is where we have come past, and we were in the wilderness 40 years. Even though they did not know, through their oral traditions, they believed that they were lost in the wilderness of Chiapas for 40 years. We know when we read in the stories that this happened when they came out of Egypt and stuff like that. So this is it's mighty for them to after so many years that had passed by, they still retain some of that information, even though that we know when we read in the Bible they're coming out of Egypt, but they said that they were lost in Chiapas, in the wilderness of Chiapas, right? So it's mighty in the coincidence that when we see these things, we're able to link them together with the Bible and with actual oral history that the so-called Hispanic Indians, right, were passing by, right, passing along each other before the conquistadors ever came up. Another one of the things that was really cool that I saw in here, and let me turn the camera around so that you can see this again. And it blew my mind when I read it. I was like, man, there ain't no doubt, man. We're definitely out of the 12 tribes, right? So in page number 15, right in the very next page, check this out. It's mighty. It says, they had laws against delinquents when they executed rigorously, which they executed rigorously, such as against an adulterer, whom they turned over to the injured party, that he might either put him to death by throwing great stone down upon his head, or he might forgive him if he chose. For the adulteress there was a penalty, save the infamy, which was a very serious thing with them. One who ravished a maiden was stoned to death, and they relate a case to the chief of the Tuturcio, who, having a brother accused of this crime, had him stoned and afterwards covered with a great heap of rocks. They also say that before the foundation of the city, they had another law providing the punishment of adulterers by drawing out the intestines through the navel. So this reminds me of, when we go into the law, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 22, because Israelites had this law. All right. Deuteronomy 22 starting at verse 22. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall all both of them die. But the man that layeth with and the woman shall they put away evil from Israel. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out into the gate of the city, and ye shall stone them with stones that they die, that the damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so that thou shalt put away the evil from among you. And it's mighty to see, that these traditions of keeping laws in these places, in these lands, was important, because when we read in the book of Second Ezra chapter 13, and let me show that to you real quick, right? Let's go to Second Ezra chapter. Let's get Second Ezra, I believe it's chapter 13, verse 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of the Assyrians, led away captive, and he carried them over the water, so they came into another land. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So, when we read these things here in these books that were left behind for us to read, it brings a certain peace, to know, like, hey man, our ancestors really are part of the 12 tribes that were casted away, right? Of course, those who are well studied and versed, there was a split of southern and northern kingdom, and the southern kingdom, which are the Jews, which consist of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and the other tribes are considered the house of Israel, making them, Israel, Naphtali, Issachar, and so forth, right? It tells you who these people are. And I hope that with bringing out little snippets and certain books that we can edify each other with, it brings hope to those so-called Hispanic and Native indigenous, to show that you really are a part of the 12 tribes, and you must come back and gather yourself together with our black brothers and sisters who are of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which were commanded to do. Gather yourselves together. Let's get a couple of precepts on that, right? Let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 49, and verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall upon you in the last days. And of course, we know that right now, in these times when we're about to see World War III pop off, that World War III is mentioned in the Bible through the precepts, through the breakdowns. It shows, that these will be the latter days. And this is why there's such a great awakening. And it is time for the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans. I say so-called because this is what the conquerors put on us. When they couldn't destroy us, they named us and they told us who we were, so we could no longer identify ourselves. For our so-called Black African American brothers, man, they hated their history, not only from them but also from us. They are the Jews of the Bible. And a Northern Kingdom, we're the Israelites. Not all the tribes, not all the 12 tribes of are Jews, but all the 12 tribes are Israelites, if that makes sense, right? So let's get another precept to this. The book of Zephaniah, chapter 2 and verse 1. Gather yourselves together. Yeah, gather together, O nation not desire. Before the decree bring forth and bring the day past of the chaff. Before the fierce anger of Yahweh come upon you. Before the day of Yahweh's anger come upon you. So this is mighty, man. It's mighty that in these last days we are able to find books that are going to be able to edify the 12 tribes. They will for the edification of the body of Yahushua Mashiach, whom the world foolishly calls Jesus Christ. And with that, I'm gonna leave a little bit more room for other times so that I can bring out a little bit more things out of these books to show that, throughout the Bible, it's being mentioned that we are of the 12 tribes. I don't want to give too much. That way I can, stretch them out and make several videos to be able to edify the body. And with that, I say, boom, Yasharala, right? All praises and honor to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Barakathum. Shalom.